Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 7. So this week we have an episode that I've had my eye out on personally since the title as well as just the general synopsis came out, which is episode 6, otherwise entitled The One with the 90s. Now, based off the title, we did assume that it would involve time travel in some form of capacity, and then the synopsis or description pretty much confirmed that. Now, of course, we know all of Team Flash wouldn't be going back to the 90s. Like, the whole team isn't going on a vacation back there or a field trip, whatever you want to call it. It was actually only going to be two characters, that being Cisco and Chester. So we weren't exactly sure what was going to be happening with the other members of Team Flash. And oh boy, some new promo material has come out which showcases what else is going on in this episode, what's going down, and it is as confusing as it is humorous. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about. We just have something to talk about and chat about in regards to all of this because it definitely needs it. Like, honestly, it feels like the Flash is having a Legends of Tomorrow crossover or something like that, but it's not. It's quite odd, but funny at the same time. But just before we go over the actual promo material that came out, we will quickly revisit the synopsis or description just to refresh our minds. And of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your various opinions, thoughts, theories, general reactions to this, because I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments section down below. Feel free to let me know down there, because I'm always curious. And of course, if you are looking forward to this episode, you enjoy the video as well, and you're just as curious and as humored by this promo stuff that I am, feel free to drop a like on the video to show your support. Cisco and Chester travel back in time and get stuck in 1998, repeating the same day over and over again. The key to returning home is at Chester's childhood home, but he refuses to visit. Meanwhile, Iris forges a connection with the Speed Force. So yeah, we have promo images to go over. I think there's about 10 or 11 in total, roughly, maybe 12, something along those lines. And they're interesting. So we start off with some basic stuff. Now, the only real thing of note to point out here is that Barry is awake here. These promo images, I'm not too sure if they're in like chronological order in regards to the episode, in regards to how they'll put online. But here we do have Barry awake and hanging out with the Speed Force with Iris and Caitlin. I'm curious what's going on with Barry in this episode, how much he's going to be in it, because I'm not too sure if this is one of those episodes where they gave Grant Gustin a bit of a rest and he's just not in the episode as much, and they'll focus on other characters like Cisco and Chester in particular. So, like I said in my trailer breakdown, I'm not too sure how much we'll have of him in this episode. I think he might be in a good amount. It's just that the Cisco and Chester stuff will be the majority of the episode, and then we'll come back to Team Flash and see what they're doing, and that's when we'll see Barry. And sometimes it'll be in that cryogenic chamber thing, and then sometimes he'll be awake like we see in this promo image here. Now, of course, the next one we have here is of Nora, or the Speed Force. I am curious to see how much she's in this season, because without spoiling stuff, she's in more than just a handful of episodes. So I am just very intrigued to see what the storyline is, where it develops, where she or it, I guess it is the best way to put it, it as a character, the Speed Force, goes in this season, and just the battle with the other forces, because as we heard last episode, she was attacked by not only Faweza, the Strength Force, but also Psyche, the Sage Force. So you have to assume the other force that's sitting there waiting, that being the Still Force, will try to attack her as well. So, you know, or it. I keep saying her because it's Nora, but it, I guess, is the Speed Force way to put it. So it's going to be interesting just to see what happens with it going forward in these next few episodes, and even this episode as well. And this is what I was saying, another promo image is what I was saying, like sometimes Barry's in the cryogenic chamber, sometimes he's out, but he's wearing a different shirt than he was. This is the shirt I think he was wearing last episode. But then that first promo image, he was wearing the grey shirt. I'm not too sure what the order is in regards to all of this, but yeah, so I think he's going to be in and out of this cryogenic chamber, or at least he'll start off the episode here, and then at some point in the episode, he'll randomly wake up and we'll hang out with him for a bit more. So we'll have to wait and see. There's just a picture of Iris and Caitlin. Not much here. Once again, another picture of Barry with a different shirt on. So this is probably later in the episode, and he seems to be nice and awake and revived. So he's not, dying anymore. And this is Cisco and Chester. So as I said, obviously it's Cisco and Chester. Why do I even say that? But of course, they're going to be the main players in this episode. There is no promo images in this bunch of them actually in the 90s. This is all modern day. Well, modern day in quotation marks, and you'll understand why I say that in a second. So yeah, so they'll probably, this is obviously towards the beginning of the episode, and they'll go away and do their stuff. But here's where we get weird. what's going on with Iris. She's got the fro on. We've got the Afro Iris with the peace symbol. And what you're going to see here is that I think we've got all these Team Flash members are going to be representing a different point throughout history. I think this. So they're going to be handling different decades. Iris here, I think this is like a 60s look. I think this is like a 60s sort of like, peace and love, man. I think that's what this Iris getup is. I'm going to say it's from the 60s. I think this person on the right, you can see the back of, is Caitlin. She looks different than another shot that I thought it would be of. So I don't know if all the characters look the same in the specific decade. So Caitlin's going to have a 60s look, while Iris has a 60s look as well. But then we jump to Joe, and I think Joe's in more of like a 50s look. This could be 60s as well, but it looks more like a 50s look. And you can see on the screen, the background, there is a lot of green energy, which is the representation of the still force. So it seems that what we're seeing with this still force holder isn't just affecting Cisco and Chester in this episode, but it's going to be affecting most of Central City, and I guess specifically Star Labs in this. And I guess we'll jump into what's going on when we get through the rest of these parameter images. But this is where I think it's like each character is representing a different decade. So we have Joe here in this, what I think is like a 50s look, but then we have Caitlin in the background, and we actually do get a better shot of that, which we'll show right here. And I think Caitlin's in like an 80s power suit, with the big shoulder pads and everything. This is like a 80s look for a woman in like a coat and stuff like that. So I think Caitlin is in the 80s, Joe's in the 50s, and Iris is in the 60s. There's even like a better look of Iris here with the afro, the big earrings, the peace, and like the peace symbol. Clearly 60s. And then you might be wondering, okay, well, if Joe's the 50s, Iris is the 60s, and Caitlin is the 80s, well, who's the 70s? It's Frost. So Frost here is in the 70s look, and someone pointed this out on Twitter, and I was like, you're absolutely right. I think they tried to make it look a bit like Janis Joplin, and like just like a Woodstock sort of vibe, and it's bang on. And so we have Joe 50s, Iris 60s, Frost 70s, and Caitlin the 80s. And you might be wondering, okay, what about the 90s and 2000s? Well, the 90s, we're time traveling there with Cisco and Chester. So that's the representation of the 90s. And I don't know what's going on with Barry. Who knows what, but they don't show Barry. So either Barry's in the cryogenic chamber at this point, or he's going to be looking like something. Maybe they have Barry looking like he's from the early 2000s with some, oh my God, like some really baggy jeans or something like that. Or maybe he looks like he's from the 90s. I'm not too sure. But in regards to what's happening here, I'm guessing it's just still force and what he's doing with that map on Central City. As I said before, we did see that map when we have Joe and Iris on screen, and it has all the green in the background. It has like different points. So these are like the parts that he's affecting, and it must just change people. I'm not too sure. Like, it's hard to get the context exactly as to what is specifically happening in this episode with all of this, but it must just affect the time and how people look. I'm sort of confused, but I'm intrigued at the same time, and I'm wondering how they're going to explain it in the actual episode. But I guess this is the confirmation that we are meeting the still force hold in this episode. Wasn't confirmed in the trailer, it looked like it, but this pretty much confirms it with all that green going on the screen. The character's name is Dion Owens, who will be having the still force powers. They confirmed that in an interview or an article after last week's episode. So he's not only going to be affecting Cisco and Chester, he's going to be affecting not only Team Flash, but also the rest of Central City. It'll be interesting to see what he does with the rest of Central City. I don't know if it's going to be sort of like a WandaVision thing, where it sort of like makes things look different. Like cars will look like they're older, from the 50s or 60s or something like that. Buildings will look a bit different. Signs, items like a Coke bottle could go from like a 2020 Coke bottle into a 1960s Coke bottle, something like that. But as I said, it's really hard to even guess what the context of what is going on specifically. But I can't wait to see what it's like. But in regards to the 1990s aspect, as I said, there's no promo images with Cisco and Chester there, which is unfortunate. I wouldn't have minded them to see something like that. But I do have one bit of casting, which I don't think is out there yet. So I guess hashtag exclusive. I learned this. We're going to be meeting a character called Quincy P. Runk, who is obviously related to Chester, and he's going to be played by Milton Barnes. Now, in regards to who this character is in association with Chester, I would assume it's Chester's dad or an older brother one of the two, and one older brother, I think like probably like a much older brother, like 16, 18 years older. But I might say a dad of Chester, I'm not too sure. But obviously in the synopsis, it says like Chester doesn't really want to go back to his childhood home. So I do wonder if this character of Quincy P. Runk, who is maybe his dad or an older brother, is the specific reason. Maybe his father died, or maybe this person wasn't a good character or figure in Chester's life. Not too sure, but that is a character that will be appearing in this episode. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play into the story, because it seems that we're going to be going to Chester's house inevitably to get something, so keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it to go over in regards to this. Theorize all you want, because I'm just extremely curious to see how this plays out in the episode, and I cannot wait to see how it all does that. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, guys, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on to show your support. Let me know your various opinions in the comment section down below. I'm always curious, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.